I am your father. It's a Father's Day edition of the Film Threat Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Chris Gore, the editor and publisher of FilmThreat.com, joined by Anthony Ray Bench, lead film critic for Film Threat.
How's it going, everybody?
And a happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We're going to be talking about Father's Day, not necessarily Father's Day movies, but movies that have themes related to fathers. There's a lot of them. There's some good ones, some comedies, some ones that are tragic. We'll be talking about Father's Day films, but I have to introduce a very special guest to the Film Threat Podcast. And this might shock some of the listeners of the show to learn that I am myself a father. So I'd like to welcome to the show my son, Zachary.
Hey, Dad. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is cool. Now, people should know Zach is a U.S. Marine and is going to be going overseas for an extended period of time.
That's right. Yep.
About, I don't know. You can't talk about details. But you're going overseas, keeping us safe. So I just want to say on behalf of everyone who's listening to this podcast, and Anthony, because he didn't mention it, very rude of him.
What?
Thank you for your service. I'm teasing you.
Thank you.
No,
thanks for the support. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I gotta say, like, sincerely, like, when you joined up, I feel like you've become my hero because you're so dedicated. You're so, I've seen you first of all, I've seen you grow since you were a little kid.
True.
But now I've seen you grow taller than me. You are definitely taller than me.
Just by an inch, only an inch.
Not by much, but
still taller.
True. And I got to ask you before we start talking about all these Father's Day movies, was it weird, when you grew up, sure, other kids were exposed to movies and TV and stuff, but in particular, I probably pushed a lot of movies on you experimentally that I'm not sure were maybe right for your age, or I was don't watch that, which I was very opinionated. Did that affect you at all?
I think so. I do remember watching a very adult film, Akira. Tetsuo! Kaneda! It's a Japanese film that's...
Wait a second, I made you watch Akira?
Probably, I can't remember how old I was. Must have been probably 11 or 12 or something like that. It was pretty, watching it more recently, I do see it was pretty adult. I don't know why you let me watch it, or if I could even really understand what was going on.
It's a cartoon. You're 11 years old. You can watch cartoons.
True, that is true. Yeah.
But Akira, wow. Okay, you know what? Simultaneously, I'm like, oh wow, is that good for an 11-year-old? My more mature and better decision-making mind is saying that might have been a bad idea to have you watch Akira. But secondly, I'm thinking that's also kind of badass because I think that a lot of children's entertainment is kind of spoon-fed like milquetoast garbage. Most of it is let's recycle, let's be friends, just be yourself. There's all these messages that for single-digit age kids are kind of thrown on them that I think are just kind of, I don't know, just a little boring and not particularly challenging.
Usually with the terrible soundtrack full of pop songs.
Exactly. So, wow. So what are some other things that because I do remember this. We went and saw episode 1 of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing it in theaters.
Exactly, in a theater. I called it Star Wars Day. I was so excited to see Star Wars episode 1 with my kids and introduce them to the world of Star Wars. I remember buying all the toys. It was almost like Christmas that day. There were toys. I had pre-purchased the tickets. We were going to go see it. And I'd already seen a screening and I was like, I'm not sure if this is a really good movie. And then you saw it, but what was it like to see that movie in a theater, not really being introduced to Star Wars in a meaningful way? And you were really young.
Right. Well,
you were under 10 years old.
I feel like that movie appealed more to kind of the younger generations because it was a little bit more playful. I think it did kind of adhere to more of the younger audience. So I feel like I did enjoy it when I watched it in theaters. Looking back now, Jar Jar is just a complete mistake. And there's a lot of things I would have not put in the movie.
That's my son.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of mistakes in that movie. A lot.
Sure. Yeah.
But as a kid, it was, it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was adventurous. So
what are some other movies that I inappropriately introduced you to that you can recall?
Okay. Well, there were a lot of movies that you did show me that maybe had a PG-13 or R rating, but that weren't necessarily so bad for kids. The Godfather, actually, seen as a kid, that one was a really good one. I did enjoy those, and I feel like a bit of violence is not too bad for kids because I haven't gone and murdered anyone or anything.
No, you turned out you turned out really well. So if I might say so myself, it's always better when someone else says it. As the dad, I'm biased. So, but yeah, so wow, yeah, like Godfather. I remember you were particularly interested in it. It wasn't something that I had to like push on you. You were like interested in watching The Godfather, and then what was really amazing to me was seeing you like when I think we watched Moon together at some point. The
right,
science
the Sam Rockwell science fiction movie.
Yeah, and I remember you liking it because it was challenging and it was also tragic.
Right, I do enjoy kind of a slower film, I like to say. I mean, I feel like a lot of films nowadays, like Percy Jackson, you just jump right into it and there's no why of why anything's happening. It's just happening because. So Moon, really good example of just kind of like slowing it down and telling the story. I really enjoy that, yeah.
Well, first of all, that's impressive because you're certainly not like your millennial counterparts because you are technically speaking a millennial, but you're the least millennial-like of anyone I've met that's your age.
Well, for film at least, I was exposed to a lot of good films just growing up around you. So I mean, you'd always have probably like the best DVDs and everything, and point me in the right direction at least.
Yeah. Wow. I'm real. This is funny because some of this stuff I remember, some I don't. But what I love about watching movies with you now is when we go to the movies and if there's any military aspect of the film whatsoever, you can rip it apart like that would never happen. That's there. Like I remember we saw the 2014 Godzilla.
That's correct. I know Edwards. Exactly what you're going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the mistakes in that?
There was just kind of a minor thing. There was a captain in the Navy, which is 06, really high ranking, and normally when you're talking to someone who's superior to you, you would stand at parade rest, which is with your hands behind your back, and that's for like if you're getting yelled at or anything like that. It's just kind of a respectful way. But he walks up to this scientist who's just like a civilian, nice guy, whatever, scientist, Japanese scientist. And he's standing parade rest. And then the two military guys behind him are standing parade rest. And it's just kind of, they did it because it looked like, oh yeah, people in the military would do that. But they obviously have never talked to anybody in the military, or they just threw on some Navy costumes and said, yeah, go act like you're in the Navy. And it's kind of annoying just from a military aspect. Once you know to like look out for that kind of stuff, there's a lot of stuff in movies. I'm sure like everybody in the military that watches movies, they see it and they're like, yeah, that's not right. Some movies do get it really, really accurate. I can't think of an example.
Well, does it take you out of the movie when you're watching
a little bit. You can really appreciate when they do get it right, when they do their fact check, and they maybe have somebody that was prior enlisted or prior officer that knows how the uniform is supposed to look. Although there's certain things that they can't do. They can't have it be 100% on. I'm pretty sure because
oh really?
Then it would be you get into like I don't know. I don't think it goes into stolen valor or anything, but there's certain things that they have to change, I think. But for the most part, there's certain movies that get it right. Full Metal Jacket, everybody knows that movie. That movie gets it pretty spot on as far as the way they act and everything. And that's because they had
sometimes with the training.
Yeah, they had Gunny Ermey, actual drill instructor. They had him in there. So that's the prime example I know. Just being a Marine, that's a Marine movie. So that one, you can really appreciate when they get it right.
No, now you should explain. You said this term stolen valor, which I know what it means, but because the members of our audience are mostly movie nerds, maybe they don't know what stolen valor is. Can you explain what that term means?
Of course. So there is an epidemic nowadays, I would say, of people pretending to have done great things for our country that have not. And this can also include people who have actually served. They can claim that they've done more than they have, but this would be the people you see at Walmart with their uniforms on that have a lot of ribbons and are, they're trying to get a discount or something. Usually, some people will call them out. But there are plenty of legitimate military people, veterans that wear the uniform and everything that they're completely allowed to. That also get called out, which is kind of tragic too. People see someone in uniform and they automatically think stolen valor, which is not the case all the time. I mean, it's if you've been in the military, you know what to look out for. So generally, if you don't know if they're stolen valor or not, I wouldn't necessarily call them out, because there have been some cases of people getting called out that were actually in the military or had served years ago and were wearing their uniform, which they're completely allowed to do once they get out. So, it's tragic though that these people try to claim that they've served when they haven't, or especially because they always go over the top. It's never like, oh yeah, I just served for 4 years. It's like, oh no, I was in for 20 years and I did, I killed 50 people and I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom, all this stuff, like all these things that just completely ridiculous. Whereas you could just say, you did one or two things. They go over the top.
Are they just looking to get perks? Because I know that like sometimes you'll get discounts, or you'll get like, people will buy you drinks sometimes too.
Right. Well, there was one case where I'm not usually in uniform off base. You just for the Navy, Air Force, Army, they're allowed to wear their camis off base. But Marines, you don't wear your camis off base. But you can wear your service uniforms or your dress blue uniforms. And there's only been a couple times where I've had to do it. I went up to San Francisco, and I was there for Fleet Week. So that was a couple years ago, back in 2014. So you have to wear a uniform when you're going out on the streets. And the people of San Francisco were great. I think I evened out with the amount of money that I gave to homeless people that ran up to me and the amount of free meals I got. So I kind of evened out with that. But no, it was a great time. People of San Francisco were very, very caring and very supportive of our military. So I appreciate them. Thank you.
Now, this is on base. You actually sometimes will get free screenings of movies.
That's right.
So you recently saw
Kong, Skull Island.
Yeah.
Actually, I went down to a different military base than the one I'm at right now, and they showed Kong Skull Island for free. They were doing it to support all the military members and their families. So they do it every once in a while. I know a couple years ago that when Terminator Genesis came out, they had Arnold Schwarzenegger actually came to the screening. It was before it came out too, so they had a bunch of guys with like night vision goggles watching the audience, making sure no one was recording anything. But no, it was great. They do show some screenings for free for us, so it is a good chance to get some free movies and good ones too.
Oh, I bet under those circumstances, that movie was really fun.
Did you see any glaring mistakes in Kong that you noticed?
Well, for the most part, it did take place in kind of an earlier era.
Yeah, it's a period piece, 1973.
That's true. So I don't know certain things. I mean, for the most part, as far as the way that they acted, it seemed pretty good. I mean, I obviously under the circumstances, giant gorilla, not really super realistic. So talking realism and the way that they acted
right.
is a bit odd. But for the most
even
part,
have that line where it's like, "There's no precedence for this."
Right. Yeah.
I love that line.
There's no protocol. Like, what do you?
Yeah.
What's the protocol? There's no protocol. Like, there's a giant monkey.
Right. So. Besides, like one odd salute from Samuel L. Jackson and John C. Reilly, like out of nowhere.
John C. Reilly was the best in that film. He really made the movie.
No, he was great. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So good. Yeah. I really hope they do a follow-up to it. Well, they're definitely doing a follow-up because of King Kong versus Godzilla is coming.
Yeah, in 2020.
Now, I hear that there's certain directors, too, that are predisposed to like military. Oliver Stone actually has been very gracious. Michael Bay. Actually, I'm told that Michael Bay is just loves the military. He has a great relationship with the military when it comes to like using gear and because the military actually has, the military, there's a division that actually works with Hollywood to promote sort of the military being presented accurately, fairly, and presented well in movies. And I met two of the guys. I was at the weirdest thing. I was at the Electronic Entertainment Expo, E3, which, have I brought you to that? I don't remember.
I've been to probably a lot of different conventions, Comic-Con, WonderCon, but not E3.
Not E3, yeah. So, God, I was in the bar at E3, and two of these guys, they were dressed in their military, it was formal, but not, they weren't in camo. But they were telling me that like, yeah, they work with Michael Bay, like they have an office. It's a whole like division of the military to work with the entertainment industry just to make sure things are accurate and portrayed correctly.
You don't want to make a film that shows the U.S. military as incompetent or cruel or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So cool. Wow. So what other movies have you seen on base that were a lot of fun?
Not many. The on-base theater, really don't generally go to unless they're showing something great,
something special.
Yeah, usually it's just one screen, and it's not super popular until they show something crazy special like that. I think I saw It Follows at that's
a weird one to show.
Yeah.
I can see Kong Skull Island, I get, because there's a military aspect. But It Follows, first of all, I love that horror movie.
It's great.
But it's just a weird thing. Like what? I don't know. It's not like it's not like a popcorn movie. It's pretty dark.
True. Yeah, it was a bit of a dark concept. I definitely love the concept of It Follows. But yeah, I don't know. On base theater, generally skip. I'll go to a normal theater to see most movies.
Now we're recording this as our Father's Day special and recording it before you ship out overseas and you'll be gone for a certain period of time. But I want to actually throw out some movies that are associated that have sort of father-son relationships or that like just sort of fit in this. If there'd be good movies perhaps to watch on Father's Day. So I'm going to throw out a couple and we can discuss them. And I know some of these I've seen, some of these we just sort of compiled a list. And I think one of the best has to be Field of Dreams.
Oh, great. Yeah, great movie.
If you build it, he will come.
Oh my God.
What is it?
It's my father.
And what's weird about that movie is I remember the first time I saw it in a theater, I remember seeing that movie with my mom, of all things, and just like crying at the end because it's one of those things that creeps up on you. The theme is sort of under the surface. And at the end, I remember just bawling my eyes out seeing that in the theater when it first came out. What are your thoughts on Field of Dreams?
I honestly saw it when I was very young, and I never saw it again. So I have very
your
little
opinion is
recollection.
useless. Then.
Yeah,
Let's
apologize.
Forget it. That's terrible. What did you? Obviously, you saw it after.
Well, like Anthony, I mean, I did see it very young, but no, great movie, great theme. Definitely kind of a more of a heartfelt movie. I feel like
Well, it's one of those. It plays on one of those things because like a typical thing with fathers and son is like playing catch.
Right.
Yeah, which I think you're better at that than I am, that's for sure. And you can skateboard, which I never learned to skateboard. So you're more athletically inclined than I ever was.
True, but not by much.
Well, let's talk about one movie I know that we've all seen, and which is a movie that I don't think is ever going to go away, and I hope they never remake, is Back to the Future. I'm talking about the original, the first movie, Back to the Future. And on that note, and it's a completely weird side note, as I'm looking at my son right now talking, and we've been working on this Film Threat documentary for a couple of years. We're digging up all this old footage, and I look at videos of myself when I was my son's age now, and we act exactly the same. I was way more low key.
Wow, yeah.
And I swear I could show you some of these videos. I did some weird cable TV show appearance when I was in my early 20s. And I look at that and I'm looking at it and I look at you and I'm like, oh my God, I had the same sort of physical, sort of skinny and svelte.
Right.
And then short hair. And then I'm looking like, I'm going, oh my God, that looks like you. Like it was very bizarre. But it is like the fun thing about that movie is what were your parents like, but also like he had to make George McFly cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of what almost an impossible task, but
Marty, hey, George, buddy, you weren't at school. What have you been doing all day? I overslept. Look, I need your help. I have to ask Lorraine out, but I don't know how to do it. All right, okay, listen, keep your pants on. She's over in the cafe. God, honey. George? Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain. Yeah, well, let's just keep this brain melting stuff to ourselves, okay?
Yeah, that's why I think that the other films in the series, while they're worthwhile and worth seeing, I feel like that him not being in it, the actor,
Crispin
Glover not being in it really did not. It just, they fell short. And then, he later won a lawsuit because they used a lookalike and they used makeup.
Yeah, for years I thought that was him.
Yeah, for years I thought it was him too, and they kind of wrote him out of the movie. And all he wanted was, he didn't want more money than anyone else. He just wanted the same money that everyone else was getting. He wasn't, because a lot of people thought that he was being greedy. Anyways, that's a weird divert. But that film still holds up to today, and I hope they never remake it.
Same here.
Cool. What's another really good Father's Day film?
I like Big Fish. Big Fish came out in 2003, and just a little backstory on me. I grew up without a father. I grew up in a single mother household, and the closest thing I had to a father was my grandfather. And my grandfather was like this Southern guy from Arkansas, and he would tell these stories and really embellish kind of with that Southern flair. And the main character in Big Fish is played by Ewan McGregor. And it's this story that's just visually beautiful. It's Tim Burton before Tim Burton went overboard and kind of cliche.
And used too many digital effects?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. But it was really, really special because I just connected and really identified. And the year before the year after the movie came out, my grandfather passed away. And so this is the kind of movie that like I watch and I just remember him, and I kind of remember certain things about my grandfather that I see in this movie and I see in the characters.
It's unbelievable.
The story of my life.
And the strange thing is there's not a sad face to be found. Everyone is just so glad to see you. And send you off right.
Goodbye, everybody. Farewell, adieu.
And that's really special to me. And it's my favorite Tim Burton movie. I know it doesn't get a lot of love, but I think it's actually the last Tim Burton movie that is good.
It's the last significant one where he just went over the board too commercial. Have you ever seen?
No, Anthony, I haven't seen Big Fish, but you're gonna bring tears to my eyes with your explanation. That was beautiful.
Well,
Thank you.
It's weird that you saying that just reminds me that my grandfather was kind of my surrogate father, because my parents split up when I was around 9, and so my grandfather kind of stepped up. So yeah, that really. I'm actually not gonna cry, but I am gonna say that I did. I got a little choked up. You telling that story.
Albert Finney is the actor that plays the older version of Ewan McGregor, and he's so fantastic in that movie. Like just watching him, like spoiler alert, he dies in the end, and just watching him like kind of wanting to pass on these stories to his son, who just really wants nothing to do with him at this point. And, is just kind of fed up with the lies and the big stories and everything like that. Is just, it's a beautiful story. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Wow. Okay. Another great, you brought up Godfather.
That's true. Yeah.
That movie is also very much a father. The whole thing is Michael, especially the first, the first movie is all like, father-son relationship and Michael Corleone kind of becoming his dad.
Oh yeah.
Right.
He really becomes his father.
I spend my life trying not to be careless. Women and children can be careless, but not men. How's your boy?
He's good.
He looks more like you every day.
He's smarter than I am. 3 years old, he can read the funny papers.
Reads the funny papers.
I'm just surprised that you watched that at such a young age and were actually, I remember you really liking it. I think also because it might have aired on television. That's maybe how you saw it and you got into it. And then I just got the DVDs. So, but yeah, like that, and that film, I mean, that is just, it's one of the all-time great American movies.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just flawless in my opinion.
That's interesting that you enjoyed it as a child, because I remember watching it as a kid and I was just bored out of my mind. Like I could not stand that movie. I watched it as probably like a 17-year-old, and that's when I really connected with it and I actually understood what was going on. How old were you when you first saw it?
Oh gosh, probably spread out between the first. I know I definitely watched the first one pretty young, but then I think watching all three of them must have been early teens, probably 13 or 14, watching all those movies. Godfather 3.
I think that's still too young. But.
Yeah, Godfather 3 is a little long, a little rough, but yeah. Other than that, no. Love the series. Great. Yeah, great movies.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's all about family.
And then, of course, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes.
We finally get to meet Indy's dad, played by Sean Connery.
Junior, you did it.
No, Dad, you did. 40 years.
If only I could have been with you.
There were rats, Dad.
Rats?
Yeah, big ones.
That movie,
perfect casting, even though they're 12 years apart.
Right. Yeah, perfect casting.
Doesn't matter. Perfect
casting. But also, like, if not for that relationship in the film, that would not have been great. It really would not have been a really good Indiana Jones
movie. The relationship is the movie.
That's what I'm saying. The whole movie is built around that relationship, because I feel like that the Indiana Jones films at that time, they're a little cliche. Like we kind of just knew, like a James Bond movie, there are certain beats that it's supposed to hit. Now I almost think that Indiana Jones is just kind of irrelevant, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, that one with Shia LaBeouf was just, ugh. Yeah, I guess that fits in the category of father-son films with Shia LaBeouf, but that just did not work.
No, not at all.
Yeah. It did not work for me. But I mean, to me, the Raiders of the Lost Ark is perfect. But Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that I like better than Temple of Doom, just because of that father-son relationship.
Well, maybe it's because I saw The Last Crusade first. Like that was my introduction.
Oh, really?
That was my introduction to Indiana Jones. That one is my favorite. Raiders of the Lost Ark is definitely my second, and Temple of Doom is third. And we don't talk about Crystal Skull.
Never. Yeah.
But that's interesting that you mentioned that you thought that the Last Crusade was cliche, and kind of the basis of the movie is a relationship. Like I get that, but I thought it was a great action movie on its own. And, like I said, I have that connection to it as a kid. Like there's certain movies that you watch as a kid that stay with you and kind of give you that feeling of like, being a kid again. And that's Last Crusade for me.
If you guys actually, I have a list that I'm just sort of naming off some stuff, but if you have ones that you want to add.
I just want to real quick. Definitely Adam Sandler is great with those. With those father-son movies. Click. I don't know if you remember seeing Click. Definitely.
I like Click. Yeah, I like Click.
I've never seen Click. Can you tell me all about it and convince me that I should watch an Adam Sandler movie?
Okay, no, you shouldn't watch it. But no, it does have some father-son themes to it. That and Big Daddy, if you remember.
Henry Winkler's great in Click.
Oh, yeah, actually.
Fantastic.
I'm so sorry I barged in. I love you, son.
See you later, Grandpa. I love you. Dad. Bob.
I love you, son. I love you, son. I love you, son.
I love you too, Dad. I'll miss you. You know that.
Yeah.
I love Henry Winkler.
Yeah, he's great in it. He plays Adam Sandler's character, or the Adam Sandler character's father. And it's the same thing. Like, I don't want to connect with my father. He's cheesy. And then, spoilers, he loses his father. It's a big dramatic gut punching moment. It's very underrated, I think.
Right.
Now, a more recent film that I would put on a list of great sort of film to watch on Father's Day is Captain Fantastic. Came out last year, 2016, stars Viggo Mortensen as basically a guy who is homeschooling his kids. He's sort of taken them off the grid. He's teaching them, he teaches them U.S. history. He teaches them they can quote the U.S. Constitution. They can quote Supreme Court cases and what they meant to the U.S. Constitution. They can also learn to survive in the wilderness, what things to eat, what to not eat. He's taken them off the grid, and they're smarter than kids that are going to public school. But he's sort of being somewhat persecuted by other relatives. And there's what happens in the film is his wife dies, and it's fairly tragic. So it's all the kids kind of dealing with the death of the matriarch of the family, but it's him trying to keep it together, being a father to this sort of ragtag group of children that he's raising on his own off the grid, and then kind of teaching them to survive in sort of, and just how messed up modern society is. Modern society is not exactly breeding the best in people, because there's this great dinner scene where he goes back to some in-laws, and they're sitting around the dinner table, and there's like these two sons. They barely know American history. They don't know stuff. Then he brings out like the youngest of his kids and asks her to quote parts of the Constitution, asks her to, talk about Supreme Court cases, and just off the top of her head, and she's also challenged with actually having an opinion. It's not about just rote and remembering things. So it was really like it's all these aspects of like, wow, even though he's living this completely weird alternate lifestyle that other people would look down upon, he's actually a great father. So I would highly recommend Captain Fantastic.
When you have sex with a woman, be gentle and listen to her. Treat her with respect and dignity, even if you don't love her.
I know.
Always tell the truth. Always take the high road.
I know.
Live each day like it could be your last. Drink it in. Be adventurous, be bold, but savor it. Goes fast.
I know.
Don't die.
I won't.
So are there other father themed films?
A few come to mind. I know Anthony mentioned Henry Winkler, and Holes, for the people of my generation, was, I feel like, a pretty big movie for a lot of people. And the reason I mention it is because his father, Henry Winkler, is, I think, Stanley Yelnats the third, or the second or something, or the third, and then his grandfather's in it, Stanley Yelnats the second, and then he's Stanley Yelnats the fourth. Basically, just don't name your kid after you, no matter how much the tradition works, because that was a terrible name. I think we can all agree.
Names are, you have no idea. I believe that naming kids your children is extremely important.
No, I agree.
I think it's extreme, because it affects, and you'll actually see there's there was a documentary where I think was it Morgan Spurlock was part of it. It's Freakonomics. The Freakonomics documentary did a study. I don't know I think Morgan Spurlock did a segment in it. It was a bunch of directors and their mini documentaries based on the book Freakonomics. But one of the things in Freakonomics they talk about is names and how important it is. They did a study where they sent out resumes, right, randomly with different names. And depending on the type of name, certain resumes got calls back, and certain other names, they would not get callbacks, especially if they were certain types of ethnicities. They would not get called. So it actually shows that employers are kind of racist. But it's really important. Like, I know that, like, when it came to naming your sister Haley,
right,
that was like a name that was like immediately your mom and I think your mom came up with that. And it was just like immediately, oh, Haley. In Greek, it means heroine. It's a strong female name, I wanted you kids to be able to do anything. You want to be a CEO of a company. You want to go off and do something. Your name is important. And then your name, we went back and forth on many names.
Right. Well, I'm glad you chose Zach because I don't know if I could have dealt with a lot of the other ones. Some of them are kind of easy to make fun of. So
exactly. Well, you were almost Lucas.
Right.
Because I'm seriously, after George Lucas, I thought, well, Lucas could be a good name. And then for short, you could be Luke.
Well, Luke, Puke, that would have been tough in elementary school.
Exactly.
So
you have to go into when naming children, you have to go into your 4-year-old brain of what you're going to call a kid. Now, at the time that you were named Zach was not a popular name.
Actually, fun fact. So I was born in 1994. And of all the years that people have been named Zach, 1994 was the most popular for Zach. So of all the years,
wow.
So the year that I was born, a lot of people were named Zach. So you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But at least at the time that we
right, you didn't. Yeah, you guys didn't know many other Zachs.
We didn't know other Zachs. We didn't know people were doing Zach. But the thing is, the name stuck with me, and I'll tell you why. And this is so nerdy, and you've never heard this. You've never heard this story.
Okay.
So
I'm scared, but
okay,
all right.
Okay. In the TV movie version of Battlestar Galactica,
okay,
there's a character named Apollo. And I'm talking about like the Battlestar Galactica from like the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
In the TV movie version, there's a character named Apollo. And it's very tragic, the first 2-hour premiere of Battlestar Galactica. And Apollo, played by, God rest his soul, Richard Hatch, recently passed away. He has a brother named Zach, and Zach, his ship gets damaged in Battlestar Galactica, and he stays behind while the Cylon fleet is coming in. And Apollo goes and leaves his brother to warn the fleet, and Zach is sacrificed and gets killed as these massive fleet of Cylons come in. And here's what I remember. I didn't name you after Zach, the character from Battlestar Galactica. I just never forgot the name because I thought the name was such a cool sounding name.
Right.
Zach is a cool sounding name. So just to be clear, you were not named after a character from Battlestar Galactica named Zach.
Do it. I'm short an engine. I won't be able to keep up with you. Zach, I'm not going to leave you. You have to. I'm putting my foot in that turbo. I'll make it back ahead of him now. Go on. You got to warn the fleet. I'll be all right. You can fly with me anytime, little brother. Good luck.
But that's where I first heard the name, and I heard the name when I was a kid, and I just remember, God, like I never knew anyone named Zach, and I thought Zach was just such a cool sounding name. And I even remember I remember when you'd hang around your friends when you were little, and they would call you Zach Attack, which I thought,
that's a common one, but
that's a common one, but it's better than Chris Piss, which I was called Chris Piss. Yeah,
lovely.
Yeah, exactly. What were you teased when you were 4?
Just my last name sounds like bitch.
Bitch.
Yeah,
I can see
especially
that.
over a loudspeaker.
Yeah,
when you're
Gore,
a kid.
whore. You probably got
Actually,
that
you know what? The thing that I never got that I would always tell people because I thought it was hilarious was so Gore, whore, right? But Zach rhymes with crack, so Zach Gore, crack whore, and everybody that I told that would forget and never remember, so it never caught on.
You were actually encouraging.
You tried to get.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's really funny, but no one caught on to it. No one ever came up with it on their own, and if I did tell them, completely forgot.
It's like you were encouraging kids to bully you, and
none of them took the bait. Yeah,
they didn't take the bait.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that they didn't, but. I don't know why. That would have been great.
That's really smart. Like Kevin Smith does that too. This is smart what you did in this sense. Kevin Smith, I don't think Kevin Smith is fat, but he's a little chubby, whatever. He's the first one to make a fat joke about himself.
Yeah,
as a way to
stealing the
disarm.
thunder.
And that's the thing is you can be disarming by saying the thing other people might be thinking, and it takes power away from them because you pointed out the joke that they might say. So, I'm just giving kudos. I'm just saying my son is pretty freaking smart to be doing that.
Hey, thanks.
Tactically speaking. So, let's talk about some other potential good movies. Can I actually tell you what is the worst movie you should never watch on Father's Day?
Oh God.
This is first of all, this is a hard movie to watch on any day that's not Father's Day. But it's a movie that is themed with fathers and sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it recently, and I cannot believe, I'd never seen this film, but it's Damage, directed by Louis Malle. And anyone that is just listening to this podcast that knows the movie Damage by Louis Malle, starring Jeremy Irons, is their jaws hitting the floor right now, because that is possibly the worst movie. You should never see this movie on Father's Day, or it's so uncomfortable, right? It's about Jeremy Irons is this he works in government. He's like an aristocrat, has this beautiful family, wife and a son, and his son starts dating a woman that's spectacularly good looking. I mean, she's stunning, gorgeous. And when Jeremy Irons, the father, meets his son's girlfriend, he's immediately attracted to her, and they start having an affair. So he's having an affair with his son's girlfriend. The son's girlfriend, and they keep doing it in secret, right? They're just saying, meet me at this place at this time. They have this secret code, and they're carrying on this affair behind the son's back, behind his wife's back. There's even a point where the son proposes, and they're going to get married, and they're planning the wedding, and yet they're still carrying on this affair. I don't want to tell you what happens. The ending of this movie is horribly tragic. You'll be depressed if you watch it. It's absolutely riveting, and it's the worst movie. Don't watch this movie on Father's Day unless you really hate your father. I think that's the theme there. Let's talk about some films that would be good for Father's Day. I actually think that the 1978 Superman,
yes,
with Marlon Brando and Christopher Reeves, my Superman. He's my Superman. I don't like the Superman as portrayed by what's his name, Henry Cavill. Just doesn't. He's the emo Superman. I'm not into him. I like the original Christopher Reeve, who would save cats from trees. But really, it's that whole father-son relationship, right? Where he gives this whole speech to his son in the crystal spaceship. He's about to send him off. Then he's sort of the embodiment, the sort of spirit that's giving his son, his sort of disembodied head, giving him advice, right? In the Fortress of Solitude. There's a real, even though he never physically meets his dad.
You will make my strength your own. You will see my life through your eyes, as your life will be seen through mine. The son becomes the father, and the father the son.
And that theme is actually carried off into Man of Steel. Actually, I will apologize for the flaws in Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel, it's. Obviously, the sort of destruction porn didn't work, but I think the stuff with Russell Crowe really works as Cal. What are your thoughts on Man of Steel and Superman 1978?
I agree with what you said about Man of Steel, but Pa Kent is such an integral part of Superman, and they nailed it. I don't think they nailed it in Man of Steel. I think that Kevin Costner was a blunder.
Yeah, no. It was a bit of a stumble. But yeah, so what do you think? I mean, those Superman movies, I think that you didn't see them at the right age. I think that here's what's interesting is a lot of things are formed by when you see them. I still think Logan's Run is a great movie. And if you watch the movie Logan's Run, you'd think it was stupid.
Oh, I mean, it's on my computer right now. I haven't watched it recently. But
you watched Logan's Run?
I do. I do have it on my computer. I've made a list of a big list of movies that I should watch when I'm overseas. So I've downloaded.
Do you have my login for all my streaming services?
Netflix, yeah, and I think Amazon and Vudu.
Okay,
yeah,
good. So you've got a decent list because I get digital copies of movies on Vudu all the time. So you should just log into the Vudu.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you can still email me from overseas, and I can give you.
I can.
There you go. Cool.
The power of the internet connecting the world.
Precisely, but those movies, I feel like it's. Certain movies had an effect on me that I realized later in life, this was not that great of a movie, but I saw it in an age where it made an impression on me. So, for example, The Black Hole, Tron, Crow, Logan's Run, Superman 2. But what are some films that you saw at a young age that you then saw later when you're older that you realize like not such a great movie, but I saw it at an impressionable age?
Oh, there's probably quite a few. Off the top of my head, probably, gosh,
Akira.
Well, I mean, actually, I like Akira.
Akira holds up.
Yeah,
No,
watching it now is a lot different than watching it when I was so much younger, because now I can kind of understand what's going on, even though it is kind of crazy and you don't really.
Yeah, it's sort of nuts. I mean, based on a long running, comic book series that. I remember reading the comic books and just thinking this is wacko. I mean, they barely condensed, 10% of the story into the movie. It's bizarre, but there has to be. Look, if you think of another one like.
I mean, just kind of off topic a little bit. Fight Club, I think. Definitely another one. I love that movie. No, I love Fight Club too.
Fantastic.
I watch that movie a couple times a year just to like get pumped about life. I mean, that is such a movie about it's not so much about father sons, but it's more about male relationships, like and how we've been in a way emasculated in society these days, right? Like when you look at all the great female characters, I saw a clip from the new Transformers movie the last night, and I feel like all the cool characters now. I mean, Star Wars has a female lead, like all this, and I'm not like against it. I think this is good. I think that look, white guys have kind of owned the space of cool action leads for a long time, but I feel like we also need a balance, right? I mean, I'm glad the scales are tipping in the other direction, but yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that one.
Okay, yeah.
I think off the rails a bit.
Fight Club, I was just saying.
But Fight Club is the themes in that are just resonate to today.
Watching as a kid though, it's a little tough to kind of understand what's going on. I mean, that Brad Pitt isn't actually there, and
it's one of those films
Edward Norton. So
it's one of those films in a short category of movies. This would make a good article on filmthreat.com of movies you need to watch twice, because the second time you see them and you know a certain fact,
you're looking for it.
You're looking for it, and then it changes your impression of the movie.
Inception, another one, great example of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
Memento.
Oh, that's
one too.
Oh yeah,
that's
that one for sure. All right. I'm going to ask. I'm going to throw out some other movies here as we wrap up. But Life is Beautiful. I don't know if you ever saw Life is Beautiful. You never seen Life is Beautiful?
Nope.
Roberto Benigni. That is also, now that I think about it, you should definitely not watch that one because that one's a tearjerker. So, but yeah, it's set in a concentration camp. So what does that tell you? Set in a concentration camp. And it's called Life is Beautiful. And yeah, that's so you have some recommendations and some non-recommendations.
Another one to not watch on Father's Day is that 1989 film Parents with Randy Quaid.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. I remember watching that as a kid. Movie. Yeah, not exactly thrilled to be in the room with parents after watching that one. So
what's that movie with Tom Selleck, Folks?
Oh, wow. Is that another one that fits in that?
No. I actually like that one. I don't know. It just popped in mind.
I'm going to end with another weird recommendation. Another movie with Viggo Mortensen, The Road.
Yeah.
Now, if you've not seen The Road, it's a post-apocalyptic film that is so dark, and it's a father and his son, and they're trying to survive on the road where most of human life is wiped out. Nature is dying. There's not much to eat. They're just sort of struggling to get by. They're trying to, stay alive in a world of scavengers.
I love the scenes where there's brief glimpses of what the world used to be like where they share that can of Coke.
Right. Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And how delicious the Coca-Cola is. Well, look, we got to wrap up this episode. I just want to say Happy Father's Day. All the fathers out there. I want to say to my son, thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, thank you for being my father.
Yeah. I love you, son. I'm really proud of you. Keeping us safe.
Hey, thanks. Love you too. But stay on track. We got a podcast.
Yeah, we got a podcast to do. And we'll end with Happy Father's Day. Check out some of these Father's Day film recommendations. Do not see movies like Damage and The Road. I think they're too depressing, but they do fit the theme. And we'll end the show as we always do, by saying,
Let's get out of here.
I